I'm in an untenable constitutional position. There's no settled law on this. There's no settled law. And by the way, the law leans squarely towards my right to senior testimonial immunity and President Trump's right to executive privilege.
Well, that was Dr. Peter Navarro. He was quite agitated, understandably, to say the least, after he was released from custody. Navarro said he was placed in handcuffs and leg irons while being arrested at the Nashville airport on charges of defying the House January 6th committee, which is a blatant abuse, he says. He was arraigned in this morning in a federal court for 2 counts of contempt of Congress. He faces up to a year in jail and $100,000 in fine for both of those charges. He was arrested this morning at the airport before he got on his plane to Tennessee. And Dr. Navarro is was a senior Trump advisor for all 4 years of his presidency. And he's refused to sit before the Congressional Select Committee on January 6th because he said President Trump's executive privilege isn't his to waive. All right, well, let's break all this down. Constitutional law expert Jenna Ellis joins us now. Jenna, it's great to see you. Okay, so Peter Navarro here, he said that this was a preemptive strike by the Department of Justice to prevent his civil suit from going forward. We've learned tonight that former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows will not be charged. I mean, what do you make of all this? Is this just a ploy for Peter Navarro?
Well, instead of Barnum and Bailey, we have Pelosi and Cheney. I mean, this is just the next act in the political circus that is the January 6th committee. And so Dr. Navarro is absolutely right that this isn't a matter of settled law and that the committee not only has violated its enabling resolution by the composition of the committee, but it's asking for things that are covered by privilege. And it's also potentially violating the separation of powers doctrine in the Constitution that requires that a committee of Congress perform a specific legislative function, where here they're clearly acting in an executive capacity and they have no real purpose other than to target members of Team Trump. And ultimately, their goal, obviously, is to get President Trump to not run in 2024. So for Peter Navarro, though, he does face a possible contempt charge here, and that is a very serious issue. And so while those issues are still now going to be carried out in court, and he absolutely deserves due process, probably the better thing would have been to sit before the committee and either plead the Fifth that several other witnesses have done, which the Supreme Court has said the Fifth Amendment isn't for people who are just trying to hide anything. It's actually specific protection the Supreme Court has acknowledged for people who are targets of political persecution and malicious prosecutions, and simply just say, January 6th committee, I'm not giving you anything, and not have this particular avenue that the committee can get a headline and a quick win.
So now that he is in this predicament, what are legal actions that he can take? What are his options?
Well, obviously, he's going to have to defend this now and provide a defense to say that the subpoena was invalid, it was unconstitutional, and he wasn't required to sit in front of it. And here that also it was a preemptive prosecution and it wasn't ripe is the legal term, by saying that his suit is still ongoing. He has sued the committee saying that the subpoena is invalid because of executive privilege, because of these constitutional flaws. And so he's going to have to now raise that as a defense in a criminal context, unfortunately. And the DOJ here, if they weren't acting in such a partisan, horrendous manner, would have allowed that lawsuit to play out and have some judicial orders in his case before proceeding with this contempt charge.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because if I understand it correctly, Navarro is actually representing himself. And the judge today advised him that he would be at risk of incriminating himself if he continues down this path. I mean, should he be lawyering up? Is this the best action for him to be representing himself?
Well, certainly, I'm not his lawyer, so I can't provide legal defense. Certainly, and legal advice to him. But certainly, we do have the right in this country to represent ourselves. It's called pro se. It's going in front of a court and saying I'm acting on my own behalf as an attorney. But obviously, everyone also has the right to counsel. And so for Peter Navarro, he has to make that decision, just like everyone else who has ever either been charged criminally or if they're in a civil courtroom. So he's going to have to make that decision himself. But certainly, it would appear that there may be some conflicts there if he is going in and representing himself and making some of those statements to the court. He may want to take another look at it. But again, that is his right in this country. And this is what ultimately matters, Lindsay, is that we have rights in this country. We have due process. And this kind of partisan political nonsense really needs to stop. And that's what every American who has common sense and who understands the Constitution is not only just, just doesn't care about this committee anymore, but they're actually outraged by the fact that this partisan hoax and this political theater is continuing when there are so many other more important issues in this country than giving Liz Cheney a platform to just pontificate her anti-Trump outrage.
Yeah, and as we know, they'll be going prime time with those hearings just next week. And this is 5 months out from the midterm. So the timing of that, you got to wonder, right? You got to wonder what this is all for. It's pretty evident. What are his chances, though? Last question here. What are his chances in court? Is he likely going to go to jail? Is he likely going to have to serve time or pay the 100,000 times 2 potentially?
Well, there's a lot of time between now and any sort of conviction or trial. There's a lot of negotiations that happen. There's a lot of things that could happen. But if due process is actually carried out and justice means anything in this country, you shouldn't see Peter Navarro in handcuffs when Michael Sussmann is going free with the evidence that we have on both cases.
Wow. Great point. Jenna Ellis, thanks for breaking it down for us. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Lindsay. Thanks.